Okay, this is going to be a lesson to look at how to build a simple facade that we can then go on to use as a mat to extend some of our scenes. If you remember in the previous week, I asked you to go and take a photograph of a building facade so that we can actually do this properly. I'm going to be looking at how to break this scene down using the techniques that you're kind of familiar with, also to actually add other elements to it so that we can have that 3D look and feel, and then go on to actually bring in the texture for this, apply it, and then use the paint tools in Maya to actually paint some of the objects in here to actually make the scene look look as reasonable as possible. Also, we'll be also looking at taking a brief look at an area in Maya called UV texture editing. Hopefully we'll be doing some texture editing ourselves and showing how the use of texture editing can actually enhance and make parts of what we've done quite accurate in sense of making things belong to where they ought to be. And hopefully that will again give you a clue in terms of how to get things, the workflow that's needed to get this this facade to look exactly the way that you want it. So the very first thing that we want to do is to use the image, the photograph that we've taken of the building as a template with which we can actually make our build. The simplest thing to do is to bring that image as an image plane. What that means is that the image that is brought in is going to be kind of sitting on the film back of the camera, so that we will be seeing it from the camera itself, and then use that as in a way to kind of look like a little template to build on. The camera that we're going to be using to do this is going to be the front view camera. And in order for me to actually bring the image into the front view, I need to go to the tool set in the camera itself, go to view, roll down to image plane and hit import image plane. It will give me a list of stuff that are kept in the source images of my project. In this case, I've called the project Facade project, and of course it will be kept in the source images. And all I need to do now is to make sure that I've selected the right image, hit the open button, and that is going to be brought into Maya's front view. If I change my cameras now to the perspective camera, you can see that I can see this image in the perspective camera as well, and you'll also notice that it's actually sitting on the 0, 0 plane. Furthermore, I've got a secondary object there, which actually is the front camera, or how the front camera kind of becomes visible in Maya once we've got the image plane in there. One of the clues of which way the camera is facing is that line there. Whenever it's pointing, you know that the camera is pointing out that way. So we've got this all set up pretty much. One of the things that sometimes we engage with is just selecting the image plane itself and deciding that we're going to push it back a little bit. So we can actually go to image plane, and then at the moment we want to push it against this axis, which is the blue axis, the Z axis. So I just need to look down here and find that, and then middle mouse button down on the scene, I can drag that backwards. So just push that back. No matter how further back you push this in the perspective view, in the front view, it always retains its position because it is placed on the film back of the of the camera there. I actually don't want this moved back that much. I can probably just move it by half a grid back. Sorry, half a grid back, which means that it should go on minus. It should have a minus value to this. And there's reasons for that, and we'll be coming to that reason in a moment. Okay, we've got this. The next thing we want to do is to kind of create a plane to cover this space, and that's a polygon plane. So if I go to the polygon plane, polygon primitives, go down to plane, I'm just going to open that up. You notice that it's got width subdivisions of 10 and height subdivisions of 10 as well. So it's 10 divisions that's going to be making this this up. And I also want this again to be placed against the Z axis, against this axis here. So if I click, I mean, if you go to reset, it's normally by Y, and you need to change it to Z. So if I click on create button, you get this image, the plane right there. From that point onwards, you just need to resize this roughly to the size that is required. You want to get it to be perhaps a little bit on the generous side. It doesn't matter. It's much better to be a little bit over than to be for it to be under. I kind of place it there because otherwise you'll have texture spilling over the side. It's much better to have it this way. Alright, so once we've got this, I can probably go ahead and resize it slightly, try and get it as accurate as possible. That will do. That's quite nice. Too much. Okay, just a tad more. That's it. That will do. So that's quite a tight fit, even though the edge, there's that bit of the edge that's spilling over. All right, we've got the basis for this. I can have a look at this in the perspective view, and that's our plane. If I press 5 on my keyboard, I can see the grid itself, 4 to see the wireframe, and from this point onwards, I can actually go back and adjust some of these cross sections to fit my purpose. I'm just going to do this in the front view. Now, because it's a photograph of a facade, what is happening is that no matter how much we try, there's going to be some sort of a perspective there. So we need to compensate at times for this, but I'm just going to try to do this. At this stage, it's not going to make too much difference. I'm going to choose edge, double click on one of the edges that I want, use my move tool to kind of get that line for that window. I'm going to click on the other edge there and drag it so that it kind of looks for that line for that molding there, and do this with the upper window here. Quite oddly, the windows on the top floor are somewhat bigger than the ones that are wider than the ones that are underneath. Normally with Georgian buildings, they're not only narrower, they're shorter as well. The lower windows may look a little bit longer, but in terms of symmetry and the way that they used to design stuff, they normally wanted the upper windows to be smaller, both in width and height, to the ones below. So it kind of had this sort of a perspective type thing. The top was always lighter than what was happening on below. But in this case, I think this is probably slightly on the weird side, but we can live with that. So I'm going to double click on this and the other side, and I'm going to rearrange these exactly as you kind of with the other 3 windows, and I'm quite happy with that. So that's just the basic setup of it. basically what we have done up to now was to bring in the image plane, brought in a plane, a polygon plane, and sort of rejigged all the relevant subdivisions there to actually help us with it. We can go on to do the same thing with the top of each window, placing everything as accurately as we can on every major division that we kind of see. That's about the right space for it, and that's it. That's all we need to do for this part of the lesson. Next lesson, we'll start extruding. We'll start making other shapes, and take it from there.